I'm admitting people. I'm admitting people and and trying to focus on the screen as well. But at any rate, we certainly hope that you've been able to begin to think about an action plan, if you will. What are some next steps that you might be able to take, and commit to small steps? What is one step that you can take in the next few days? What is one step that you could take in another month towards that post-secondary goal, be it going to work or going on to college, or some type of training? And then most importantly, especially through today's session, we hope that you will think about what is one area where you feel like you need some additional support. And we hope that you'll be able to learn about some of those tools today, tools and resources today, to help you begin thinking about that. Let's see here. All right, so as I said, we've been together for the last 3 Saturdays minus one. We skipped one and came back today. And I have to say, for anyone who might be new to today's session, that this entire series has been graciously and generously supported by the Texas Workforce Commission. And you'll have an opportunity to even hear from one of our leaders from Texas Workforce this morning. I have dropped the survey into the chat, but I will continue to do that as we go through our morning. We certainly value your feedback. Texas Workforce really appreciates the feedback so that they can know whether these types of sessions and other suggestions that you might even complete in the survey can be added for the upcoming school year. And of course, I'm Carla Johnson, the Regional Transition Specialist, and I am here at the Service Center to support you, students, families, educators. This is what I do on a daily basis. So that's my contact information. And then now I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to David Parker and Sharon Fields so that they can begin our session for us this morning. Thank you again for being here. Sharon, are you frozen? David, I might need you to pick up because it looks like Sharon is having some issues. Are you able to hear me?
I can, Carla, thank you. Yes, and Sharon, can you hear us or no?
She's frozen. She may have to go out and come back in.
Sure. Okay, well, good morning, everybody. It's so good to be with you. And Carla, again, thank you for this opportunity and the warm welcome. And the fact that you all are giving up some time on Saturday morning says a lot about your interest. So again, we appreciate it very much. As Carla said, Sharon and I have enjoyed the opportunity over the last few sessions to introduce the concept of self-determination as a framework and a set of tools for better understanding how to set goals and how to work toward goals, largely by discovering within yourself, particularly now I'm speaking to students, the motivation and the clarity and the confidence to work toward those goals, but also how to use the resources in your environment, your parents, your teachers, mentors. If you're in a faith community, maybe ministers or youth pastors or other people in that part of your life. If you work, how to work with employers and supervisors to promote your success and your successful movement toward goals. But again, this is all really designed to help you be thinking about what you would like to do with your life after high school and how to use the time between now and then to get ready for it. So we're so glad that you're with us today. Let's go on to the next slide, please. And what we're going to be talking about today as we sort of finish this series is several things. First and foremost, we want to help you again continue to identify and resources that can help you during this transition process or any other transition process for the rest of your life that you'll be going through. So we're going to identify a number of different resources today in a number of different ways. We're going to review some communication strategies that we've introduced and modeled over the last 2 workshops. Some of those communication strategies we'll talk about in a few minutes are for parents or family members. Some of the communication strategies are for you, young people, students, teenagers, whatever stage of life that you might be in as well too. We've given you workbooks, and if you've been with us over the last couple workshops, we've given you some activities that we hope you've been able to work on in between these sessions to just begin getting a feel for what it's like to use those communication strategies. It isn't a test. Nobody's expecting perfection. They're just additional tools that you might want to know about and incorporate into how you communicate and seek help and work on goals. So we'll do some more activities and practice with that this morning. We're also going to hear from a very important colleague, as Carla mentioned in just a moment, to give you more information about the vocational rehabilitation services here in Texas that can play a huge role in your transition process. We're also going to do a bit of a role play this morning to practice some of those communication skills that we've been talking about. And then at the end, we'll wrap up and look at, again, the important evaluation process and feedback, and maybe take a look at some next steps. Okay, next slide, please. So again, Carla, do you want to introduce Kevin?
Well, certainly I can, Kevin. You can prepare to, yeah, he already did, unmute yourself. And Kevin is with Texas Workforce Commission, family, students, educators. That is our vocational rehabilitation contact. He's one of them, one of very many. And in a few minutes, I'm going to make sure that I'm able to share some additional resources with you from Texas Workforce Commission. They also have a zip code locator. So depending on where you live, you would just simply put in your zip code and a few more pieces of information, and it will identify the office that's closest to you and even give you a contact person. So I'll show you that here in just a moment. But without further ado, Kevin, go ahead and tell us a little bit about voc rehab and the potential services that our students and families can take advantage of.
Sure, absolutely. Good morning, everybody, and thank you, Carla. I also want to echo my thanks for all the parents and students and educators on this morning, giving up part of your Saturday. It's a good investment of your time for sure in trying to put all these pieces together for a successful transition for students with disabilities after high school. You know, it's definitely a wise investment, so we thank you for that. Carla asked me to share about the options that families have with services through Texas Workforce Commission vocational rehabilitation. And so there's basically 2 options if you're not connected with us yet, in terms of if you don't have a counselor, if you don't have a case, you can approach our agency and receive services really in 2 different avenues. The first avenue is just by simply contacting us and requesting what we call pre-employment transition services, or pre-ETS, pre-employment transition services. And so that is just simply activities like this, you know, maybe workshops or seminars. It also includes summer work programs or year-round work programs if you're looking for, you know, just a work-based learning opportunity as a student or as a you know, a parent for your child to get some work experience. Just some of the basic things. We do have an easy avenue to do that, and it's just, like I said, simply requesting pre-employment transition services from our agency. And it's done through a single form, a 1-pager. You just have to complete that form and provide verification of the student's disability And then we can start connecting them with, other important workshops like this, or work-based learning opportunities, or, counseling on specific areas as it relates to post-secondary training, or as it relates to self-advocacy. There's a lot of things we can do in this arena of pre-employment transition services. So that is one option. The other option is that you can choose to apply.
You froze. Can you begin your statement one more time?
Oh, sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you, but for some reason we're getting a little freezing going on.
Okay. Well, let me start that statement over again. So the second avenue in which you can pursue services through vocational rehab through TWC is by applying for the full array of VR services. And so let's say, you're interested in getting some assistance with post-secondary education or training. Well, that would not be a pre-employment transition service. That would be, really an individualized VR service. And so if that's kind of what you're primarily interested in, you'll want to apply for the full array of VR services. So you might say, well, Kevin, if I apply for the full array of VR services, can I also get the pre-employment transition services included in that? Yes, absolutely. The reason that we have these two different options is that the agency, as well as Congress, who passed this law several years ago, feels that these pre-employment transition services are so key that we don't want to create any barriers or make families jump through any hoops to get these basic services out to students with disabilities. So that's why there are these two options. So that was primarily what I wanted to convey this morning, is that, basically, if you're not connected with TWC, you've got those two different pathways. Now, I know Carla's going to provide some resources a little bit later, but I also wanted to provide you a phone number. We have, over the last couple of years, developed what's called a rapid engagement team. So if you're not connected with us and would like to be connected with us, one of the best and quickest ways is to contact our rapid engagement team. And the phone number for that is area code 512-936-6400. So again, that number is 512-936-6400. And they're open Monday through Friday, regular business hours. So that's an additional resource, and in addition to what Carla will share about how to connect with us. But they'll connect you with the right office, with the right counselor, with what you're, letting them know what you're interested in. And it's the best way to get things started with us. The other thing I wanted to mention before I turn it back to Carla is just for those of you students and parents that are connected with us already, and you do have a counselor with TWC VR, I wanted to just encourage you to maintain that good communication with your counselor. At the top of this presentation, Carla mentioned some of those steps that we can look towards in terms of what step can we take next. Well, my encouragement to you on those next steps, if you do have a TWC counselor and you do have a case with us, is just to do the very best you can to stay in good communication with us, because just like any other relationship, communication is key, and that includes your relationship with vocational rehab. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Carla.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. But I did have one question in the chat, and it's whether you can start when you are still in high school. And so absolutely, but I wanted to let you speak to that as well. And
Sure.
families, again, even as early as age 14. So Kevin, go ahead. The question was, can you start that when you were in high school? And I think you were talking about the pre-employment transition services and then the VR services as well.
Sure, absolutely. So both pre-employment transition services or the full schmear of voc rehab services are available to students starting at age 14. So usually that happens when kiddos are in the 8th grade. And so you can certainly reach out to us when the student is at age 14 and pursue either of those options. For a lot of students, they're starting just with pre-employment transition services, and then a little bit later on, they go ahead and apply for the full array of VR services. And that's fine, you can do that, or you can just start by applying for the full array of services. So again, it starts at age 14.
All right, and then Kevin, we had a question is, how do you choose which option to start with?
Well, it's really up to you. Again, if you're just looking for some basic services like these types of workshops and seminars, for students, or if you're looking for just basic counseling sessions with one of our counselors on post-secondary options or around career exploration, I'd like to take an interest inventory, and I'd like to kind of figure out where my interest lies in terms of a vocation. Or, I'd like to get a summer job, or maybe an after-school job or something like that. Just some of those very basic things, foundational things, you might want to pursue pre-employment transition services. If you're really interested in a wider range of services, like, hey, we're pretty close to finishing up high school and we're looking at college or post-secondary training, or there may be some medical or some professional counseling types of individualized services involved with a student in question, you might just as well go ahead and apply for the full array of VR services, because again, if you went the pre-employment transition services route, it doesn't include everything. Those individualized services can only be done through the regular VR process. And so that may kind of help you determine which avenue to go. But again, I think the best thing that you could do as well is when you reach out to us and you speak with a counselor is just ask them, what's available. And that may help you determine one way or another.
All right, very good. We have one more, and I am going, the person that wrote this, I'm going to put my email into the chat box, but they've completed the paperwork, Kevin, for VR services through their high school, given a counselor's name, but they haven't heard back. What would be the delay? And yes, as a parent, this person has reached out to their VR counselor. I want to be involved in that. I'm sure Kevin wants to be involved in that. That's why I'm going to put my email in there. If you'll email me that, we will make sure that we connect with our regional coordinator.
Sure.
Our counselors get very busy, but we want to make sure that we get your information put back in front of them and make sure that someone does reach out to you, because we don't want there to be a delay. So I'm going to put my email in just a few moments, but before I do that, so we can move on with our session, and then let's see, I think there was one other comment. Let me just make sure. Okay, no, David is requesting, you're welcome, requesting if anyone else has other resources that they would like to share, you guys can just drop those in the chat as well. But let me move forward. And again, this is that zip code locator, VR office locator that I was referring to at the beginning. You can use your QR code, and I'll drop this link in here in just a few moments also. But just simple information like your zip code and maybe the county that you live in, and it'll bring up where your closest office is and who that counselor is that would be serving your area if you don't know who that person is. Kevin touched upon this a few moments ago, but we've got two pre-employment transition counselors that serve Region 10 and also Region 11. We are in Region 11, so the contact would be Natasha Mendenhall. And so that's what Kevin was describing, are those very basic services. They do some great workshops and sessions virtually they have done over the past year, and they began working with those 14 and 15-year-olds with summer earn and learn opportunities and just career exploration, if you will, if a student has an interest in that. So those are those counselors' names that are on the screen, and I can also include those in the chat. And what we're going to do, so that you're not having to hurriedly write all this information down, is just make one sheet of information that we are discussing, from resources that we're discussing today, and then we're going to post those on the Region 11 website, where the resources for today are located, as well as the recording. The other thing, families, educators, if you don't know, several years ago, and this was per a piece of legislation, Texas, the state mandated that we develop what's called a Texas Transition and Employment Guide. And in this guide is information that is relevant to many state resources. Are you guys able to see the change of the screen at this point? Okay, good. So the guide has information about self-advocacy, which is and self-determination, which is something that we're focusing on right now. It gives you a timeline for transition services. It gives you who the state resource is for employment and supported employment services. And Texas Workforce would also be, that contact information is within this guide. Information on post-secondary education, health and human service agencies, and then just contact information for all relevant agencies. This guide is getting ready to have a new look come the fall of 2021, with any new and additional pieces of information added. School districts, you guys know that you have to share this guide with our families on an annual basis, and make sure that families are able to access this guide. And so I'm not going to go through and show it to you, but I just wanted to let you know that there is such a guide that has state resources. Those state folks can also point you in the direction of folks that are in your own backyard or in your own region. And it's available in Spanish. And we also have e-publication, which is a digital book. Okay, so I wanted to make you guys aware of that. Let's see here. And Sharon, I've got to get
and
back.
I am glad to be back. I don't know what happened. That's the first time that's ever happened to me. We have been having storms in the area, so maybe that's it. It is wonderful to see how many resources that you have in Texas, and the head start you have on supporting students to be more self-determined during transitions. As Carla mentioned, we're going to be gathering all of these resources together, posting them on the website. Any additional resources you would like to add that you could type into the chat, we'll make sure those get on the list as well. I'd like you to encourage you to take another look at beselfdetermined.com for ongoing resources related to self-determination and transition. And if you have anything that you would like to share, there is so much good work going on in Texas that we're always looking to feature programs so that we can share information between people. We would love to do that.
All right, and the last thing that I was going to say, families, students, educators, please make sure that you frequently visit the Student Centered Transitions Network's website, constantly being updated with tools and resources there. There's an area for students, an area for families, and an area for educators. This information is brought to you by our state lead, the Sam Houston State University's Eleanor and Charles Garrett Center on Transition and Disability Studies. And this is a website that is supported by the Texas Education Agency. So please frequently visit the website. The guide can also be found there. The guide can be found on the regional website, and chock full of information for you on this particular website as well. And so Sharon and David, we're going to let you continue unless we'll save questions for the end, but we'll let you continue with our presentation for today.
Great, thank you. David is going to help us take a look at some of the homework we did between our last session and this session. One of the things that we have emphasized throughout this is that self-determination is all about relationships, and that it's really important that we're able to access support from others as we work to be more self-determined during transitions. So one of the things we wanted to focus on was using powerful communication strategies. And we, in this next section, are going to review a bit how some of those conversations went for you in the last week or so. And then we're also going to dive a little bit more deeply into it. David?
Thanks, Sharon. So yeah, we would just like to open it up right now and hear from any of you who might have some comments. And as we've done before, you can post them in the chat if that's where you're more comfortable sharing. If you want to unmute and just, talk to the whole group, if you're comfortable sharing information that way, you can too. But as Sharon said, what we'd like to do first is to just kind of look back a little bit with you all over the last couple of weeks. And if you've had a chance to practice anything that we've talked about, if you've had a chance to try any of the activities in the workbooks, we were asking you to practice these communication skills. Let's just review those quickly, and then we'd love to hear from you. If you had a chance to try any of them, what worked for you? What seemed to go well? What didn't work for you? What was hard, or what did you have questions about? For family members, we encourage you to use active listening, where you're not really giving advice or telling your son or daughter what they need to do. You're just listening. You're acknowledging their feelings. You're just sort of restating what they're expressing, particularly as a way to help them maybe work through some emotions first before they might then be able to get into a problem solving or a planning mode. We introduced the coaching technique of powerful questions, brief, open-ended questions that are really designed to light up a person's executive functioning and get them thinking about what they might do to take steps toward their goals. We introduced the stoplight strategy. That's where if a parent, a family member, a teacher does want to offer some advice or make a recommendation, in order to ensure that we're not taking over or making the young person uncomfortable by giving them a suggestion they really don't think is going to work for them, we preface it by saying, let me make a suggestion, but if you like it, please green light it. If you really don't like it, please red light it and tell me why. If you like some of it but want to come up with your own version that gets you thinking about another approach that would work better, why don't you give it a yellow light and tell us what that new approach would be? And then finally, we talked about I statements. Those tend to allow us to share our own feelings without making people uncomfortable or defensive, particularly if they're negative feelings. I'm feeling very frustrated right now, and because I don't know how to help. Might be an example of an I statement. For students in the audience, for teenagers, again, we introduced I statements, particularly when you're feeling upset or frustrated or irritated or anxious. If you can make an I statement, I don't know how to do this. I'm feeling kind of dumb right now. I'm wishing to just be left alone right now. Those are some examples of I statements. We also talked about managing your emotions, learning how to do some deep breathing, how to get up and go for a quick walk, how to get out a fidget spinner toy. One of our colleagues last time, a school counselor, made a really great point. I'm sorry that I'm forgetting your name, but it was a wonderful point. She said a lot of our students have their own strategies for coping with stress, but we may not know what they are. And she invited us to ask the young people we're working with, how do you manage your stress? Can you tell me so that if you do it, I'll know that and I'll support you and understand what you're doing right now is to calm down. So we encourage you to share that with the adults in your life and just say, when I get upset, here's what I need to do to calm down. So please let me just do that right now so that we can move on maybe with the conversation once I calm down. Finally, we talked about negotiating a win-win, which is just learning how to express what you're hoping to get out of the conversation or the planning process, and then hearing from that other person, probably the adult, what they're hoping to get out of the conversation or the planning process. And then see if the two of you can come with someplace in the middle where you're both going to be comfortable and feel like we made some progress here. If you can kind of reach that middle ground together, that's what's called a win-win situation. So again, we'd love to just open up right now in whatever way anybody would like to offer some comments or give us a quick sort of recap. Did you try any of these techniques? And if so, did they work for you? Were they harder than you thought they might be? So I'll just pause, invite you all to think about how you might share some feedback. And Sharon and Carl and I and the rest of us would love to hear from you right now.
And please feel free to either write some of your thoughts in the chat box or to just unmute your microphone.
Michelle writes, trying a new behavior takes practice. The more you practice, the more natural it will become. Absolutely. So that's all about having realistic expectations, Michelle, isn't it? This isn't about perfection. We're not going to hit a home run the first few times we try this, and nobody's expecting you to. But we do want to encourage you to practice these skills because they do work. We can learn them. We can get better at them over time. Thank you for that. Practice does make progress, Karen. That's right. That's right. Thank you. And even beyond the last 2 weeks, if any of you have tried these strategies or communication techniques, even before this workshop series, how did they work for you then? Teachers, I'm sure you use those quite a lot in your classroom and when you're working with students. We know these aren't, original strategies that Sharon and I invented, but we wanted to just package them in this workshop and encourage. And any of you who are students, again, you may not be familiar with these terms, but you might just want to say something or type something about when I'm trying to reach a goal and I'm trying to tell somebody what I'm doing and maybe get their help with it. How do I communicate that? How do I express my goal? How do I ask for help if I'm wanting somebody to help, or if I'm wanting somebody to leave me alone and let me do it on my own? How do you try and communicate that with others?
And Michelle, I think your point is very well taken, that it may not feel natural at first at all, especially making I statements or actually going through the steps of win-win negotiation where you take time to state what your wants are and then listen to the other person. But the more that you do it, the more it will become just a natural part of how you are. Elise notes that asking questions the right way that makes them meaningful and powerful definitely takes time. And that's where that patience comes in. And sometimes it even helps if you're trying out a new skill, like especially if it's a student and one of their family members, that you actually talk about that, we're going to just try and practice this. And it might even create a few giggles and as you move through that process.
Anybody else want to share? Karen says that I think that there is a reinforcing nature to it as well. Students practice it and get a good response from an adult. Likewise, adults practice it and get a good response from the student or the child. So I would agree with you on that, Karen. Great point.
Absolutely. And as we practice these skills, these are the same skills that lead to success in the workplace. And so not only are students and family members able to communicate less stressfully using some of these skills, but we're building skills that will help us in a variety of places. And we're helping our students to build those skills.
Absolutely. Anybody else? Cherie says a routine that will lead to a positive habit. That's right, Cherie. The more we practice it, the more it will become a habit for you, just something that's very natural for you to do, for our students to do. And even me as an adult, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
In the interest of time, why don't we go on to the next slide now? We might have to get creative here, Sharon. But what we're wanting to do next is see if two individuals who are with us today are feeling confident enough, extroverted enough to do a role play where one of you would pretend to be a student, or maybe one of you is a student and would like to be involved here, and one of you would be the adult talking with the student. And we'd love to just take a few minutes to let you have fun with these skills. Again, this isn't a test. This isn't about getting it right and being perfect. It's just about practicing some of these skills where the student would identify a goal that they're trying to work on and come up with some realistic ways to accomplish that goal. And the adult is trying to help them without taking over or telling them what they need to do, but support them. And we're wondering if two of you would be willing to, unmute, and we'd actually like to have a conversation here that everybody could watch and listen to, where one of you again would be the student, one of you would be the adult. Could we get a couple of volunteers from those of you who are with us today? Is anybody feeling confident enough to just have some fun with that?
I could be the student, and I could use an example that my son recently talked to me about.
Thanks, Michelle. Appreciate that. Would anybody care to work with Michelle and be the adult in this situation?
I mean, I could try, but we gotta get the picture back.
Thank you both very much. So,
Yes.
okay. And so, Michelle, maybe why don't you get us started by telling us a little bit about this goal that you're wanting to work on?
Okay, well, I want to, I'll just say I'm a 7th grade boy. I want to gain 16 pounds by the end of next year.
Whoa. So am I practicing to be the adult?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Oh gosh, I don't know what to say. You want to, your goal is to gain 16 pounds by when?
By the end of next year, by the
By
end
the-
of my 8th grade year.
By the end of your 8th grade year. Okay. So do you have any ideas about how you might like to start or what you might like to do?
I'll need to probably eat more and work out more.
Oh, that sounds good. That sounds good. Any thoughts on what you might like to eat? more of?
That's probably the hardest part is because I don't like a lot of foods.
That could be a good thing. If you don't like a lot of things, you might write down what you do like
I could do
and
that.
kind of take it from there.
Yeah.
Did you go ahead?
Maybe I could make sure I have my carnation drink at least once a day.
Oh, that sounds great. That sounds great. Is that something that you think you'll be able to remember
Yeah,
to
I
do?
think I could do that.
Awesome. Awesome. And did you mention exercise?
Yeah, I should probably start working out.
Oh, so what does working out mean to you?
Well, I don't want to do any cardio, more like building muscles. So maybe I could do push-ups and sit-ups every day.
Cool. Do you do push-ups and sit-ups now?
Not often.
That's
But
okay.
I know how to do them, so I think I could.
Good idea. Good idea. So that sounds great so far. What do you think so far?
I think that will be good. Maybe I could also go to the grocery store with you and see if I could pick out some more foods I'll be willing to try.
Oh, I would love to do that. And then maybe you can tell me when we go to the grocery store, do you want me to just kind of go with you and you can pick out what you like and I can give you ideas so that you can kind of go for it first?
Yeah, I think I would like to find the food.
Yeah, I like that. I can hang out with you like your backup.
Let me jump in here. You two did a wonderful job. Thank you both very much. Thank you for volunteering and just thank you for modeling such great communication skills. Can we open it up to everybody else and invite folks? What did you see? What seemed to be working? What great communication skills did you observe just then? And again, feel free to use the chat room or feel free to unmute and just share your thoughts verbally. That was really wonderful. I'm really impressed.
Was.
I didn't see a lot of telling and advice giving, right? And it's so easy, particularly when we're busy or stressed out, we've got lots of other responsibilities, to just say, look, here's how we're going to fix that problem. So, Mom, thank you for listening and being supportive, but letting your son, in this case, be very much kind of in charge of sharing ideas there.
Can I say something right quick?
Please.
It's so much easier to role play with someone else than when it's your own kiddo, because you're right. It's gonna be like, what do you want to gain 16 pounds for? What's that about? Well, I don't know. If you're gonna do, I would definitely pick some healthy food. I wouldn't eat the stuff that like you're eating now. It's so much easier. We have, like you said, we have to practice. When it's your own kid, you're so invested in,
Yeah.
That's
And
true.
so-
That's a great point. We can tend to do that with someone else rather than our own son or daughter. So I would agree with you on that. Someone else in the chat place made a comment that giving the student the responsibility of making the decisions. I love that. That is just so very powerful. It really is.
Absolutely. And what this really underscores is how our relationships with our sons or daughters are changing as they get older, and where we did do more telling when they were younger, and we need to start shifting that responsibility as they get older, and that may not feel real natural. but stepping back and very conscientiously trying some of the new skills, and which sometimes also requires taking a few deep breaths.
Yeah. Other observations, other comments? Michelle, in your side of the role play, what was that like to have that conversation as the young person?
I really liked how she asked me, like, well, when we go to the store, do you want me to do this? Or do you want, like, she asked, how can I support you? And that felt, that felt very empowering, that it wasn't like, okay, when we go to the store, I'll show you what, we can buy.
Good, good. Yeah. As I listened to you describe your goals, I was, if we can embrace curiosity when we're listening to young people and just want to hear more from them, just often to be surprised. Sometimes that curiosity can dampen some of all that other parental talk in our head about that's not going to be realistic. He's tried it before. I've got some concerns about his weight. How's that going to interact with his medication? And all those responsibilities as a parent going through your head can interfere with your ability to just be present and supportive. And so a curiosity I had was, my gosh, that's such an exciting goal. Why are you embarking on that right now? So sometimes just ask, wow, what's in it for you? Where did that come from? Tell me why you're interested in doing that right now. I'd really love to hear more about what your motivation is, essentially. Sometimes just asking that question can give us a moment or two in the conversation to kind of breathe and kind of let go of all those, wait a minute, I've got a few concerns or I've got a few questions. Have you thought about this? And just sort of see if you can park that. Not that it's not important, but just kind of put that aside for a moment so you can be present and do the great listening and supporting and inviting that we saw in this wonderful role play here. So sometimes just ask why. What's your motivation? Tell me more about what's behind that for you. Okay.
A couple of things I noticed too with the questions. I noticed, first of all, just lots of questions, which were absolutely fabulous and that demonstrated curiosity. And then also several questions that started either with what or how. And those really, if we can kind of remember those words, those invoke a curiosity and invite our students to explore what they're saying a little bit more.
And, just a nice segue to what you just said. One of our participants said phrases like, tell me more. That whole idea of open-ending questions is really helpful. And try to avoid asking why, staying away from that. Because as humans, Karen writes that we tend to become automatically more defensive when we're asked why. And that's a very true point.
We can feel like our reasons are being questioned or called into question. But to ask about motivation, tell me more about why you're interested in doing that. You seem very passionate about it. I'd love to hear more about that. Can really open that up. So that was really great. Again, thank you both for jumping in and showing us some great examples of how to do this well. We're going to skip forward yeah, right. Thank you, Carla. What we wanted to do here, well, first of all, Sharon, before we go on, is there anything else about what we've covered so far or the role modeling that you just observed that you'd like to comment on?
Well, actually, I think that we've covered that very well. And I'd also like to thank our participants for role modeling and for being so engaged. That's great.
Absolutely.
Next slide, please. We have just a few minutes to wrap some things up. And we want to wrap up with a few questions for you. we're wondering if this has helped you to think about the changes you'll be making after high school any differently now, or thinking about the changes as a parent or friend of a young person or teacher. Has the time that we spent the last couple of weeks, has it helped you to think any differently about how that process might be able to go more smoothly, with a little more ease, with a little less stress? And in doing that, maybe think about one new thing that you've learned over the last 3 weeks. And then we'll move on to a couple other questions. But if maybe you could unmute your microphones or respond in the chat box. We learn a lot from each other, and we'd like to hear your perspectives so that we can each learn from each other. You found the workbooks helpful. I'm glad to hear that. And if you have any questions as you continue to do those activities, please let us know. Our email addresses are on that title slide. And teachers, we invite you to use these activity books with your students and families going forward. For the teachers, we hope that this has given you a chance to become familiar with some new resources that you can use on an ongoing basis. Carla, could you address the workbooks? We sent I think we posted those initially on your website. We also sent them out to all of the participants. They're electronic, you can download them.
Yes, those are on the website, and I can put that link in there again for anyone who may not have grabbed it. And what I can do on Monday is make sure that everyone who was registered for the session will just send those out to you again so that they can be at the top of your mailbox. But let me get that link. But yes, it's on the workbook. Resources and the recording are available on the Regional Secondary Transition website, which is right here.
And we will also post the workbooks on beselfdetermined.com so that you can download them from there as well. There are also lots of other free resources there, assessment tools, curricular materials, that if you're looking for additional resources to promote self-determination with your students. I'd also like to ask you to think about one thing you can do next that will make you that will help you have a successful transition after high school. So for students, if you can think about one small step you could take, or for family members, one small thing you could do that could help your students, or for teachers, what is one small thing that you could do next that would help you to move forward? I think one of the things that too often bogs us down when we're working to be self-determined during a transition is we see a big something we want to move toward, but that's not very doable for us in the moment. But if we can take one small step toward it, then we'll begin to see more small steps, and pretty soon we're there. Kathy said that she will use the workbooks in a class. That's fabulous. I'm glad to hear that. And we would love to hear your feedback. Please don't let this be the last time we hear from all of you. We would love to stay connected. And indeed, if you'd like to do a blog post for us, we'd love to share your experiences trying out the workbooks with other people.
Kay made a comment, Sharon, I'd love to give some feedback to. Kay mentioned that they're planning on touring some facilities that offer post-secondary education for students. That's great. Nothing like being there in person to sort of just see, you know, is this going to be for me? A suggestion, I've run the post-secondary services for students with learning disabilities and ADHD on 3 different campuses. And one of the things that I always thought seemed to work well when students and families would come for a tour or a visit is with a little bit of pre-planning. Some of the students and families would ask if the student could meet with other students while they were there, who use the office, who use the services. So as part of the tour, as part of the meeting, could the students just spend 20 minutes together in another room together could they walk over to the Union together and, have a Coke together and just talk? And I often heard from students that that was the most meaningful part of the visit, when they just got to meet other students who are a few years older than them or just a year or two older. So you might think about seeing if that can be arranged, Kay, as you make those tours. Food for thought.
David, I think the student that posted at the comment, I think he may have sent it to you, but I was extremely curious to know, did you say he's going to be taking some, I hear you say he's going to be doing some tours? This is the young person who expressed an interest in, I believe, animation. Am I correct?
Yeah, please jump in. This Kay Easterwood Sanchez posted this to everyone. That's what I was commenting on, Carla.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
And so again, the comment was, for a really good transition, we are planning to tour some facilities that offer post-secondary education for students. So that was the comment I wanted to just give
Okay, perfect. Well, I know that we do have another student who's already left, who graduated this year, and he was interested in looking at some certification programs, colleges in his own backyard. So I hope that that would be a great next step for you in doing some research and taking one little step towards maybe going to the campus and visiting. And I think he knows who I'm referring to. So
the other thing, real quickly too, if I may, and Kevin made me think about this, is doing a career assessment with a young person at this stage in their life can just be incredibly helpful right now. Sharon and I put together an additional list of resources that are being shared with you all. And it includes some links for more information about career assessments or evaluations. It usually entails doing the Myers-Briggs personality test and a strong interest inventory that looks at jobs and work environments. But a career evaluation, which your Voc Rehab may be able to help you with, guidance counselors at your high schools may be able to help you with, private psychologists in your community may be able to help you with. A career evaluation or assessment can really help pinpoint what's appropriate, what's doable after high school. Is it school? Is it work? What kind of school? So if you haven't thought about those yet, that can be a very good investment of your time and a little bit of money to give the young person very specialized, individualized guidance about what they should do after high school. So I wanted to mention that as well too.
And that little 2-page list of targeted resources that we put together that Carla will be posting on the website are really responsive to things that came up in the session, the first 2 sessions. There are so many resources out there. We're trying not to flood you with them, but we did try to put together a targeted list that seemed to fit the specific needs we were hearing. Karen mentioned that she's thinking about starting a small group counseling to have dedicated time to work through some of the activities with the students. I'd like to share that I think pulling in resources from throughout the schools, counselors, psychologists, teachers, that there are so many ways that people in different roles in the school can contribute. And Karen, I'm really glad to see that you're thinking about incorporating it in the counseling program. And then I also, from a parent, I heard asking her son open-endedly what he wants to do next. It can be awkward to make that shift of giving more control to the student. However, it gets to be pretty fun after a while too, I think.
Absolutely.
I'd like to thank you all so much for your participation. Next slide, please. We would like to thank all of you for coming on this short road trip that we took. And we know that it's just the beginning of a much longer road trip for each of you. Our contact information is there, and we'd love to hear from you, even if it's just to say, I tried this and it worked, or I tried this and it didn't, or what were you thinking? We'd love to hear. Next slide, please. We'd like to remind you to fill out your evaluation form. Any specific feedback you can provide for us, we'd love to hear. Watch for updated resource lists to be posted. And our final slide, please.
1 second. I was trying to put the link for the survey. Here I go.
You are dancing pretty fast today. We'd like to provide a really big thank you to your teachers for all of their work in helping to make this possible. To Kevin from Voc Rehab for all of his support and for being here today to share resources as well. For Carla for making the whole series possible. And it's really her ongoing work at ESC 11 that informed us putting this together and tailoring it to what we thought would be valuable for you. And to Lindsay, who couldn't be here today, but was here the last 2 sessions and really did a lot of the legwork to make this happen. Carla, I'll turn it back to you.
Well, I just want to see if anyone has any questions that we might be able to answer or other additional comments that you'd like to make. And if not, we appreciate you